The warning lights flashed red across Orbital Station Gamma 7's main docking bay. Tae-sung Kim wiped the grease from his hands and looked up at the emergency display. Another shuttle with critical failures. That made 3 this week. He checked his watch and cursed quietly. He had promised Jiwoo he would be home early tonight to help with her science project. Tae-sung, you're up, the shift supervisor called out over the intercom. Unmarked shuttle, priority repair. Drive system is failing. Tae-sung grabbed his toolbox and headed toward the docking bay. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he walked past rows of shuttles and cargo ships. After 12 years as a mechanic, he knew every sound, every vibration that meant trouble. This station was his home, even if the pay was terrible and the hours were long. The unmarked shuttle sat in Bay 7, its engines still glowing with heat. Tae-sung approached it carefully. Something felt wrong. The design was standard coalition military, but the markings had been stripped away. Only high-ranking officers traveled in unmarked shuttles, and they usually brought their own mechanics. He climbed into the engine compartment and started his diagnostic scan. The readings made no sense. The primary drive showed a phase alignment error, but the secondary systems were all functioning normally. That should not be possible. If the phase alignment was truly off, the whole drive system would be dead. Tae-sung pulled out his manual scanner, the old-fashioned kind that actually showed raw data, instead of just giving simple yes or no answers. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he checked each system. Then he saw it. A small device tucked behind the coolant manifold, exactly where someone would hide something they did not want found. His blood went cold. He had seen devices like this before during his time in the military. This was a phase inverter bomb. When the drive engaged for faster-than-light travel, the device would reverse the phase field and tear the shuttle apart from the inside. It would look like a drive malfunction. No evidence. No witnesses. We have a problem, Tae-sung said into his communicator. I need security in Bay 7 right now. Negative, the supervisor replied. No security available. Just fix the shuttle and move on. We have 6 more ships waiting. Tae-sung looked at the device again. He could see the timer. Someone had set it to activate in 4 hours. If he called this in through official channels, the paperwork alone would take 3 hours. By then, whoever owned this shuttle would be dead. He made a decision. His hands moved quickly, pulling tools from his belt. The bomb was sophisticated, probably Valorian tech. The aliens loved their complicated systems. But Tae-sung had learned something during his years fixing broken equipment. Complicated things could be stopped with simple solutions. He grabbed his welding torch and heated the device's outer casing until the internal sensors shut down to prevent overheating. Then he used a magnetic clamp to hold the deactivation switch in place. Finally, he wrapped the entire assembly in thermal tape, the kind mechanics use to patch emergency hull breaches. It was not elegant, but it would keep the bomb from activating. What are you doing to my shuttle? Tae-sung jumped and hit his head on the engine housing. He turned to see a woman standing at the entrance to the engine compartment. She wore a simple gray flight suit, but something about the way she carried herself screamed military officer. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes were sharp and calculating. I'm saving your life, Tae-sung said, climbing out of the compartment. He held up the deactivated bomb. Someone put this in your drive system. It was set to blow in about 4 hours. The woman's expression did not change, but Tae-sung saw her hand move slightly toward the weapon at her hip. She stepped closer and examined the device. Who are you? She asked. Tae-sung Kim, senior mechanic. Who are you? Before she could answer, heavy footsteps echoed through the docking bay. Station Commander Dalho Choi appeared, flanked by 4 security officers. Dalho was a large man who had earned his position through political connections rather than skill. He spent most of his time making life difficult for anyone who refused to play his games. What is the meaning of this? Dalho demanded. Mechanic Kim, you were ordered to repair this shuttle, not dismantle it. There was a bomb, sir, Tae-sung said, holding up the device. Someone tried to sabotage the shuttle. Dalho's face turned red. That is ridiculous. You damaged coalition property, and now you are making up stories to cover your incompetence. He turned to the woman. I apologize for this, Admiral. This mechanic will be terminated immediately. Admiral, Tae-sung felt his stomach drop. He had just called a coalition admiral by her first name and told her he was saving her life like she was a child who needed protection. Commander Choi, the woman said calmly, this man just prevented my assassination. I suggest you listen to him. Dalho's expression shifted slightly, but his voice remained hard. With respect, Admiral Park, I cannot allow a mechanic to make wild accusations about bombs without proper evidence. This device could be anything. Mechanic Kim has a history of unauthorized modifications and ignoring proper procedure. Admiral Park stepped forward. Tae-sung recognized her now. Hai-jin Park, the youngest admiral in coalition history. She had earned her rank in the border wars, leading a small fleet against impossible odds and winning. Every soldier in the coalition knew her name. I am taking this device as evidence, Admiral Park said. Mechanic Kim will come with me to provide a full report. I am afraid I cannot allow that, Admiral, Dalho said. Station security takes priority. Mechanic Kim is terminated as of now. He will be escorted to his quarters and will leave the station within 24 hours. Tae-sung saw the calculation in Admiral Park's eyes. She was measuring whether this fight was worth it. Station commanders had authority over civilian personnel, even if an admiral outranked them militarily. If she pushed too hard, it would create a political incident. Very well, Admiral Park said finally. She turned to Tae-sung. Thank you for your service, Mechanic Kim. She walked away, her footsteps precise and measured. Dalho smiled triumphantly. Clear out your locker, Dalho said to Tae-sung. You have 1 hour. The security officers escorted Tae-sung back to the maintenance section. He packed his tools in silence, his mind racing. 12 years of service gone in a moment. How was he going to tell Ji-woo? They had barely enough savings for 3 months. Finding another job would take time, and station housing was only for active employees. When he reached their small quarters, Ji-woo was sitting at the kitchen table working on her homework. She looked up and smiled. You're home early, she said. Can we work on my project now? Tae-sung set down his toolbox and sat across from her. He had practiced this speech in his head during the walk home, but now that he was here, the words would not come. We need to talk, Ji-woo, he said gently. I lost my job today. Her smile faded. What? Why? I did the right thing, but sometimes that does not matter, Tae-sung said. We are going to need to leave the station. Find somewhere new. Ji-woo was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. It's okay, Dad, she said. We will figure it out. We always do. Tae-sung squeezed her hand and tried to smile. She was so much like her mother. Strong even when everything was falling apart. He would find a way to protect her. He always had. But as he looked out the small window at the stars beyond, Tae-sung could not shake the feeling that something much bigger was happening. Admiral Park's calm acceptance, Dalho's quick dismissal, the sophisticated bomb that should not have been on a routine station. Something was very wrong, and he had just stepped into the middle of it. The message arrived at 6 in the morning. Tae-sung was already awake, staring at job listings on his data pad while Ji-woo slept in the next room. The notification flashed red across the screen, marked with the highest priority level. He opened it and read the first line 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. Tae-sung Kim, you are summoned to the CNS Indomitable, Admiral Park's flagship, immediately. A shuttle will arrive at docking bay 12 in 30 minutes. This is not optional. His first thought was that Dalho had filed charges against him. Maybe they wanted to prosecute him for damaging coalition property. His second thought was worse. Maybe the bomb had been real, and now they needed him to testify. That would mean getting involved in something dangerous, something that could hurt Ji-woo. He got dressed quietly and left a note for Ji-woo on the kitchen table. Soonja, their neighbor, had agreed to watch her for the day. The old woman ran a small noodle shop on the station and had been kind to them since they arrived years ago. She would make sure Ji-woo got to school and had food. The shuttle was waiting when Tae-sung arrived at the docking bay. 2 Marine guards stood at the entrance, their faces expressionless behind their helmets. One of them scanned his identification and gestured for him to board. The ride to the Indomitable took 20 minutes. Tae-sung spent the time looking out the window at the massive warship. It was the largest vessel he had ever seen up close. The hull stretched for almost 2 kilometers, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Ships like this did not come to places like Station Gamma 7 unless something important was happening. They docked on the main hangar deck. More Marines waited for him, along with a young officer who introduced herself as Lieutenant Bo-ra. Follow me, please, she said. The Admiral is waiting. Tae-sung followed her through corridors that gleamed with fresh paint and polished metal. Everything on the ship was new and perfect. Crew members moved with purpose, their uniforms crisp and clean. He felt out of place in his worn mechanic's coveralls. They stopped outside a door marked Admiral's Ready Room. Bora pressed the entrance button and stepped aside. "Good luck," she whispered. Tae-sung walked in. Admiral Park stood by a large window that looked out at the stars. She turned to face him, and this time she wore her full uniform with all her medals and rank insignia. She looked even more intimidating than she had in the docking bay. "Sit down, Mechanic Kim," she said, gesturing to a chair. He sat, his mouth was dry. "I assume you think you are here to face charges," Admiral Park said. "You are not. The device you found in my shuttle was indeed a bomb. My team analyzed it. Very sophisticated Valorian technology, the kind that only a few people in the Coalition could access or build." She pulled up a holographic display. Images of other shuttles appeared, all marked with red X symbols. "This was the 7th attempt on my life in 3 months," she continued. "Before me, 5 other human officers died in similar accidents. Each time the investigation was blocked or delayed by officials like Commander Choi. Someone is trying to eliminate humans from Coalition command positions." Tae-sung felt cold. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need help," Admiral Park said. "Someone I can trust. Someone outside the normal chain of command. Someone with technical skills and no political connections to compromise." "I am just a mechanic," Tae-sung said. "Why would you trust me?" "You saved my life knowing it would cost you your job," she replied. "You did not hesitate. You did not ask for anything in return. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." She pulled up another holographic image. This one showed a list of names. Tae-sung's breath caught in his throat when he saw the third name from the top. "Sang-woo Ryu," he whispered. "Your former commander," Admiral Park said. "He died 3 years ago in a shuttle accident. The official report said it was pilot error. I believe he was murdered because he discovered evidence of this conspiracy." Tae-sung's hands clenched into fists. Sang-woo had been more than his commander.
He had been his friend.
He had been at Tae-sung's wedding. He had held baby Ji-woo in his arms and promised to be her godfather. "What do you want from me?" Tae-sung asked. "I want you to be my chief engineer," Admiral Park said. "Work on this ship. Help me stay alive long enough to expose whoever is behind these murders." "I have a daughter," Tae-sung said. "I cannot put her in danger." Admiral Park's expression softened slightly. "I know Ji-woo Kim, age 8. She attends primary school on Station Gamma 7 and scores in the top 5% of her class in mathematics and science." She pulled up another image. This one showed a document with Ji-woo's name at the top. "This is a target list," Admiral Park said quietly. "It was embedded in encrypted communications we intercepted last week. Your daughter's name is on it." The room seemed to spin. Tae-sung gripped the arms of his chair. "Why?" he managed to say. "Because they know you worked with Sang-woo. Because they think you might know something. Because eliminating family members sends a message to anyone else who might resist them." Admiral Park deactivated the hologram and sat down across from Tae-sung. "The safest place for both of you is here on this ship under my protection," she said. "I have a school for military families. Ji-woo can attend classes with other children. She can make friends. She can have a normal life, but she will be protected by the best security in the Coalition." Tae-sung wanted to run. He wanted to grab Ji-woo and disappear into some forgotten corner of space where no one would find them. But he knew that was fantasy. If his name was on their list, they would find him eventually. "What would I have to do?" he asked. "Help me keep this ship running," Admiral Park said. "Find the people on my crew who might be working for the conspiracy. Use your skills to give us an edge. And teach my engineers how to think like you do. How to improvise and adapt. Your engineers will not like taking orders from a civilian mechanic," Tae-sung said. "No, they will not," Admiral Park agreed. "My chief engineer is Valorian. His name is Velthar. He is brilliant at following procedures and maintaining systems. But he cannot think outside established protocols. You can. That is what I need." Tae-sung looked out the window at the stars. He thought about Ji-woo doing her homework at their kitchen table. He thought about Sang-woo's laugh and the way he had always found a way to solve impossible problems. He thought about his wife who had died 5 years ago and made him promise to protect their daughter no matter what. "I have one condition," Tae-sung said finally. "Ji-woo gets to be a kid. She goes to school. She makes friends. She does not get trained as a soldier or treated like a target. She gets to be normal." Agreed, Admiral Park said immediately. She will have access to all the ship's facilities, the recreation areas, the library, the gardens. She will be treated like any other child of a crew member. Tae-sung took a deep breath. Then I accept. Admiral Park stood and extended her hand. Tae-sung shook it. Welcome aboard the Indomitable, she said. Lieutenant Bora will help you collect your daughter and your belongings from the station. You will both move into quarters on Deck 7. They are larger than what you had on Gamma 7. I will have the engineering department notified of your appointment. When do I start? Tae-sung asked. Tomorrow morning at 0800 hours, Admiral Park said. Use today to help Jiwoo settle in. She is about to have a very different life. As Tae-sung left the ready room, he felt the weight of what he had just agreed to. He was stepping into a war that he did not fully understand. He was putting himself and his daughter under the protection of someone who was clearly a target. But he was also taking action instead of running. He was fighting back against the people who had killed his friend. Jiwoo deserved better than a father who hid from danger. She deserved a father who stood up for what was right even when it was hard. Even when it was scary. He just hoped he was making the right choice. The engineering deck of the Indomitable was impressive. Massive reactor cores hummed with contained power. Control panels stretched across 3 walls, displaying data from every system on the ship. Everything was organized, clean, and operating at perfect efficiency. It was also completely wrong. Tae-sung stood at the entrance and watched the engineering crew work. They were all Valorians, tall and elegant with pale blue skin and long fingers that moved with precise grace. They checked readouts, adjusted controls, and logged data with mechanical regularity. Not one of them looked up when he entered. You must be the human. Tae-sung turned to see a Valorian approaching. He was taller than the others, perhaps 7 feet, with silver markings on his neck that indicated high rank among his people. I am Velthar, chief engineer of this vessel, the Valorian said. His voice was cold and formal. Admiral Park has informed me that you will be working in this department. I was not consulted on this decision. Nice to meet you too, Tae-sung said. He had dealt with Valorians before. They valued perfection and precision above all else. They saw humans as chaotic and inefficient. Your station is there, Velthar said, pointing to a small desk in the corner of the room. You will review maintenance logs and identify any discrepancies. You will not touch any controls without my direct authorization. You will follow all established procedures. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Tae-sung said. He spent the first 3 days doing exactly what Velthar told him to do. He reviewed logs. He identified discrepancies. He submitted reports that no one read. All the while he watched and learned. He saw how the Valorian engineers worked. He saw their strengths and their weaknesses. Their strength was remarkable. Every procedure was followed exactly. Every system was maintained to perfect specifications. The Indomitable ran like a clock, precise and reliable. Their weakness was just as remarkable. When something unexpected happened, they could not adapt. They would stop, consult their manuals, and follow the prescribed solution even if it made no sense for the specific situation. On the 4th day, Jiwoo came to visit him during her lunch break from school. She was excited about her new classes and the friends she had made. She talked about the ship's library and the zero-gravity recreation room and the observation deck where you could see the stars. Do you like your new job? She asked. I am still figuring it out, Tae-sung admitted. Mom used to say you could fix anything, Jiwoo said. She said you saw solutions where other people only saw problems. After Jiwoo left, Tae-sung thought about those words. He looked around the engineering deck with fresh eyes. Yes, everything was perfect, but perfect meant inflexible. Perfect meant vulnerable to anything outside the expected parameters. He started making notes. Small things at first. The coolant system ran at optimal temperature, but there was no buffer for sudden temperature spikes. The power distribution was perfectly balanced, but there was no redundancy if one circuit failed. The shield generators operated at maximum efficiency, but they broadcast their harmonic frequency in a predictable pattern. On the 7th day, alarms began screaming across the engineering deck. Contact. Multiple vessels. Bora's voice came over the intercom. Krell rating fleet 9 ships. They are moving to intercept. The Valorian engineers moved to their stations with practiced precision. Velthar began issuing orders in calm, measured tones. Increase power to forward shields by 15%. Charge primary weapons to 80% capacity. Route auxiliary power to the sensor array. Taesung watched the tactical display. The Krell ships were spreading out in a standard attack pattern. The Indomitable could handle them easily. This should be a simple engagement. Then the ship shuddered violently. Red warning lights flashed across every panel. Forward shields collapsing, one of the engineers reported. Unknown cause. Impossible, Velthar said. Run a full diagnostic, another impact. The ship shook harder. Shields at 30%, the engineer said. They are targeting the exact harmonic frequency. They should not know our frequency. Taesung suddenly understood. Someone had leaked the shield frequencies. The Krell were exploiting that information perfectly. In minutes, the shields would fail completely. Velthar, let me try something, Taesung said. Absolutely not, the Valorian replied. We must follow proper procedure. We will identify the problem and implement the correct solution. We don't have time for that, Taesung said. He was already moving toward the main control panel. Stop, Velthar ordered. I will have security remove you. Another impact. The lights flickered. Somewhere on the ship, people were dying. Taesung made his decision. He pushed past Velthar and accessed the shield controls. The Valorian reached for him, but Taesung was faster. His fingers flew across the panel, typing commands that made no sense by any standard procedure. He rerouted shield power through the waste reclamation system. He connected the shield generators to the communications array. He linked the whole mess to the ship's clock, creating a timing variance that changed every millisecond. The shields came back online, but they were no longer perfect. They flickered and pulsed irregularly. The harmonic frequency jumped all over the spectrum like a drunk person trying to sing. What have you done? Velthar said in horror. This is complete chaos. Exactly, Taesung said. On the tactical display, the Krell attack pattern began to fall apart. Their weapons could not lock onto the constantly changing shield frequency. Their perfect strategy became useless. All weapons fire at will. Admiral Park's voice came over the intercom. Focus on their lead ships. The Indomitable's guns tore into the Krell fleet. Without their advantage, the raiders were outmatched. Within minutes, they were breaking off and retreating into faster-than-light space. The engineering deck was silent. All the Valorian engineers stared at Taesung. Velthar looked at the control panel with an expression that might have been disgust or might have been fascination. That was the most inefficient, illogical, dangerous modification I have ever witnessed, Velthar said slowly. It violated 17 safety protocols and 6 fundamental principles of shield engineering. But it worked, Taesung said. Yes, Velthar admitted. It worked. Admiral Park arrived on the engineering deck an hour later. The shields were back to normal now, operating according to proper specifications, but everyone knew what had happened. Someone leaked our shield frequencies, the Admiral said. That is the only way the Krell could have countered them so perfectly. We have a spy on board, she looked at Taesung. Your quick thinking saved the ship. I need you to help me find whoever gave that information to the enemy. I will help however I can, Taesung said. After the Admiral left, Velthar approached him. The Valorian's expression was difficult to read. I have worked with humans before, Velthar said. I have always found them frustrating, chaotic, unpredictable. But today I learned something. Sometimes chaos is exactly what is needed. Does that mean I can touch the controls now? Taesung asked. Velthar considered this for a long moment. You may touch the controls, but you will explain your reasoning first, and I will decide if your chaos is helpful or simply destructive. It was not exactly trust, but it was a start. That night, Taesung returned to his quarters to find Jiwoo asleep on the couch, a book on engineering principles open on her chest. He smiled and carried her to her bed. She was growing up surrounded by soldiers and engineers, learning to see the universe as a place of problems to be solved, rather than a place to fear. Maybe Admiral Park was right. Maybe this was where they needed to be. But as Taesung looked at the tactical reports on his datapad, he saw the truth beneath the surface. The Krell attack was not random. Someone had told them exactly when and where to strike. Someone had given them the shield frequencies. Someone on this ship wanted Admiral Park dead, and that someone was still out there, waiting for another opportunity. Lieutenant Bora came to the engineering deck 3 weeks after the Krell attack. She looked tired and worried. She waited until the other engineers were focused on their work before approaching Taesung's station. I need to show you something, she said quietly. Somewhere private. They went to a small maintenance room on the lower decks. Bora locked the door and pulled out her datapad. I have been monitoring communication since the attack, she said, looking for anything unusual. Encrypted messages, suspicious timing, hidden channels. She pulled up a series of transmission logs. To Tai Sung, they looked like normal ship communications. Supply requests, personnel reports, status updates. Look at the timestamps, Bora said. Every one of these messages was sent exactly 3 minutes before a shift change. That is the window when communications monitoring is weakest. She pulled up another screen. And look at the recipients. They all go to relay stations near the border. But if you trace them further, they eventually reach the same destination, a Valorian diplomatic station. So someone on this ship is sending information to the Valorians, Tae-sung said. Not just any Valorians, Bora replied. This station is run by the Hardline faction, the ones who want to absorb humanity into the Valorian Empire as a subordinate species. They see us as too chaotic, too unpredictable to be equals. She pulled up more data, documents, personnel files, financial records. I have been digging deeper, Bora continued. The conspiracy is bigger than just killing Admiral Park. They are targeting every human officer who opposes the Valorian Annexation Treaty. If they eliminate enough of us, the Coalition Council will vote to make Earth a protectorate. We will lose our independence. Tae-sung felt sick. How many people are involved? At least 50 that I can confirm, Bora said. Spread across multiple species and ranks. They have people in Coalition Command, in station security, even in civilian government. Commander Dalho, Tae-sung said suddenly. Yes, Bora confirmed. He is one of them. His job was to make sure no one investigated the bomb on Admiral Park's shuttle. When you found it anyway, he tried to discredit you and cover up the evidence. We need to tell the Admiral, Tae-sung said. I already did, Bora replied. That is why I came to you. We just received orders to escort a diplomatic convoy through the Helix Nebula. The Admiral thinks it is a trap. Can she refuse the orders? No, they came directly from Coalition Command. If she refuses, it is mutiny. They can use that as an excuse to remove her from command and arrest her for treason. Tae-sung looked at the data on Bora's pad. The route through the Helix Nebula was dangerous even under normal circumstances. The nebula disrupted sensors and communications. Ships could hide in the dense gas clouds. It was the perfect place for an ambush. What does she want from me? Tae-sung asked. She wants to know if you can give us an edge, Bora said. Some way to survive what is coming. Tae-sung thought about the ship's systems, about the weaknesses he had identified, about the Valorian love of perfection and the human talent for improvisation. Tell her I have some ideas, he said, but I will need complete access to all systems. And Velthar is not going to like what I am planning. The convoy entered the Helix Nebula 4 days later, 3 diplomatic ships accompanied by the Indomitable. Tae-sung had spent every waking hour preparing. He had modified systems all over the ship, creating backup plans and hidden advantages. Velthar had objected to every change, but Admiral Park had overruled him. The sensors are practically blind in here, one of the bridge officers reported. We are navigating on instruments only. Maintain formation, Admiral Park ordered. Stay close to the convoy. Tai-sung was in engineering, watching the displays with growing tension. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Then it happened. Ships appeared all around them, emerging from the nebula clouds. Krell raiders and Valorian destroyers. At least 20 vessels, all focusing their fire on the Indomitable. It is an ambush, someone shouted over the intercom. They are ignoring the convoy. They want the Admiral. The ship shook violently. Shields flared and warnings screamed. Return fire, Admiral Park ordered. Her voice was calm despite the chaos. All ships protect the convoy. We will handle this. But the enemy knew exactly where to hit. Their weapons punched through the shields like they were not there. The ship's hull was breached in 3 places. Life support failed on 2 decks. They know our systems perfectly, Velthar said in horror. Every weakness, every vulnerable point. Because someone told them, Tae-sung said. He was already moving to the main control panel. Time to show them that information is out of date. He activated his modifications. The reactor's power flow reversed, creating a massive energy spike that every sensor in the area would read as a critical overload. The Indomitable appeared to be suffering a complete reactor failure. What are you doing? Velthar demanded. Making them think they won, Tae-sung said. The enemy ships moved closer. surrounding the Indomitable like predators closing in on wounded prey. They stopped firing, probably wanting to capture the ship intact and parade Admiral Park as a prisoner. All power to forward shields, Taesung said. And pray this works. He redirected every bit of stored energy in the ship into a single massive EMP burst. It radiated out in all directions, frying electronics and overloading circuits. The enemy ships went dark, their systems dead in the water. Now, Admiral Park's voice came over the intercom. Attack pattern Delta. Take them while they are blind. The Indomitable's weapons came back online. The ship turned and fired, its guns tearing into the disabled enemy vessels. Other coalition ships that had been waiting on the edge of the nebula rushed in to support them. Admiral Park had called for reinforcements before entering the ambush. But the battle was not over. Taesung saw new alerts flashing on his screen. Someone was trying to access the ship's internal systems from inside the vessel. We have intruders, he said. They are trying to reach the civilian section. His blood went cold. Jiwoo was in the civilian section. The school. The children. Go, Velthar said suddenly. We can handle engineering. Protect your daughter. Taesung ran. He grabbed a plasma cutter from the tool rack and sprinted through the corridors. He could hear weapons fire ahead, screams, alarms. He reached the civilian section to find Bo-Ra and 3 security officers fighting against a group of saboteurs. They were wearing indomitable uniforms, but they fought with the coordination of trained soldiers. They are trying to reach the school, Bo-Ra shouted. Fall back to the entrance. Do not let them through. Taesung did not hesitate. He activated his plasma cutter and joined the fight. The saboteurs had guns, but they were not expecting a mechanic with an improvised weapon. He used the cutter to melt their cover, forcing them into the open where Bo-Ra's team could shoot them. The fight lasted 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. When it was over, 4 saboteurs lay dead or wounded. 1 security officer was injured, but the children were safe. Taesung pushed into the school to find Jiwoo and the other kids huddled in a corner. A young teacher stood in front of them, holding a chair like a weapon. When she saw Taesung, she nearly collapsed with relief. Dad! Jiwoo ran to him and he held her tight. I am here, he said. You are safe. I promise. Later, after the battle was over and the ship was secure, Taesung stood on the engineering deck and looked at the damage reports. The Indomitable had survived, but barely. 53 crew members were dead. Another 100 were injured. The ship needed major repairs. But they had won, and they had proof. The saboteurs carried identification that traced back to Commander Dalho and several other officials. Their weapons were Valorian military issue. Their communications devices contained encrypted messages that Bo-Ra was already decoding. Admiral Park called a meeting in the main briefing room. Every senior officer attended. Velthar stood beside Taesung, which felt strange but somehow right. We have evidence of a conspiracy, the Admiral said. We will take this to the Coalition Council. We will expose everyone involved, and we will make sure they face justice for what they have done. But as Taesung looked around the room at the tired, wounded crew, he knew the fight was not over. The conspiracy had failed today, but powerful people were still out there, people who would not stop just because one attack had failed. The real battle was just beginning. The Coalition Council chamber was massive. Representatives from 47 species sat in curved rows that rose toward a domed ceiling painted with stars. Taesung had never been in a room this important before. He sat in the observer section with Jiwoo beside him, watching as Admiral Park prepared to present her evidence. The past 3 weeks had been exhausting. The Indomitable had limped back to Coalition Central Station for repairs. Bo-Ra had worked day and night decoding the saboteurs' communications. Investigators had arrested Commander Dalho and 16 other officials across multiple stations. But the leaders of the conspiracy remained hidden. The council recognizes Admiral Hyejin Park, the council speaker announced. He was a Valorian elder named Sortan, known for his fairness. Admiral Park stood. She wore her dress uniform with all her medals. She looked calm and confident, but Taesung could see the tension in her shoulders. Honored council members, she began. I come before you with evidence of a conspiracy to undermine humanity's position in the coalition. Over the past 6 months, 7 human officers have died in suspicious accidents. 5 human officials have been assassinated. 3 human colony governors have been forced to resign under false charges. She activated a holographic display. Data filled the air above the council floor. Communications logs, financial records, personnel files. This conspiracy involves members of multiple species, Admiral Park continued. But the pattern is clear. Every incident weakens humanity's political power. Every death removes someone who opposed the Valorian annexation treaty. A Valorian representative stood. She was tall and elegant with silver markings that indicated noble birth. "These are serious accusations," she said coldly. "Do you have proof that the Valorian Empire sanctioned these actions?" "I have proof that members of your hardline faction organized and funded them," Admiral Park replied. "Whether your government knew is a question for your own internal investigators." She pulled up more data. Communications between Dalho and Valorian military officials. Payment records showing money transferred from Valorian accounts to mercenary groups. Weapons shipments from Valorian supply depots to Krell raiders. The attack on my ship in the Helix Nebula was the culmination of this conspiracy, Admiral Park said. "They wanted to kill me and blame it on random raiders. They wanted to create chaos that would make the Council more willing to accept the annexation treaty." The Valorian representative's expression did not change, but Tae-sung saw something flicker in her eyes. Surprise, anger? It was hard to tell. "These are all circumstantial," she said. "Communications can be faked. Financial records can be altered. Do you have any direct evidence linking the Valorian government to these crimes?" Admiral Park hesitated. Tae-sung knew why. They had evidence against individuals, but not against the government itself. The conspiracy had been careful to maintain separation between official channels and their illegal operations. Then Bo-Ra stood. She was not supposed to speak, but she activated her own datapad and projected a new file onto the holographic display. "3 days ago, I received an anonymous message," Bo-Ra said. "Someone inside the Valorian diplomatic corps. They sent me this." The file showed a video recording. 2 Valorian officials in a private office. One of them was a high-ranking admiral in the Valorian fleet. The other was a member of the Valorian Council itself. "The human resistance is stronger than we anticipated," the admiral said in the recording. "Admiral Park survived the Helix Nebula ambush. Worse, she captured several of our operatives. Then we moved to the political solution," the council member replied. "We accelerate the treaty vote. If we cannot eliminate the human opposition through violence, we will eliminate their power through legal means." The recording ended. The council chamber erupted in voices. Representatives shouted questions. The Valorian delegation looked stunned. Council Speaker Sortan called for order. It took 5 minutes to restore quiet. "This evidence will be investigated thoroughly," Sortan said. "In the meantime, I move to postpone the vote on the Valorian annexation treaty until all questions have been answered." The motion passed with overwhelming support. The Valorian delegation protested, but they were outnumbered. Admiral Park had won a temporary victory. But as they left the council chamber, Tae-sung knew the situation was far from resolved. The Valorian Empire was too powerful to be simply defeated by one piece of evidence. The conspiracy's leaders were still free. The danger had not passed. 2 days later, the coalition made their decision. Commander Dalho and 17 other officials were formally charged with conspiracy, attempted murder, and treason. The Valorian government agreed to conduct an internal investigation and punish any officials found guilty of involvement. The annexation treaty was modified. Instead of making Earth a protectorate, it would establish closer military cooperation while preserving human independence. It was not perfect, but it was survival. Admiral Park called Tae-sung to her ready room that evening. She looked tired but satisfied. "The coalition wants to offer you a formal position," she said. "Chief Innovation Officer. You would train engineers across the fleet in adaptive problem-solving. Help them learn to think like you do." "That is a big job," Tae-sung said. "You saved this ship," Admiral Park replied. "You helped expose a conspiracy. You deserve the recognition." "What about Ji-woo?" Tae-sung asked. "She is finally starting to feel settled here. I do not want to disrupt her life again." "The position is based on the indomitable," Admiral Park said. "You would continue working here. The difference is you would also travel to other ships for training sessions, but you would always come back." Tae-sung thought about it. He thought about Ji-woo's smile when she talked about her friends at school. He thought about Velthar's grudging respect and Bo-Ra's quiet support. He thought about Sang-woo and his wife and all the people who had died because they stood up for what was right. I have conditions, Taesung said. Of course you do, Admiral Park said with a slight smile. Jiwoo gets real shore leave. Proper vacations on planets with sunshine and beaches. She gets to choose her own education path, not have it chosen for her, and she gets to leave this life whenever she wants. She did not choose to be part of this fight. Agreed, Admiral Park said. And one more thing, Taesung added. I want to train the next generation of human engineers, not just repair skills. I want to teach them how to innovate, how to see problems differently, how to turn our chaos into an advantage. That is already part of the job description, Admiral Park said. Is that a yes? Taesung extended his hand. That is a yes. 3 months later, Taesung stood in his workshop teaching a class of young engineering recruits. They came from all over human space, eager to learn. Jiwoo sat in the back row taking notes even though she was still too young to be an official student. The key to human engineering, Taesung told the class, is understanding that perfection is not the goal. Adaptation is the goal. Solutions that work are better than solutions that are theoretically perfect. He held up a piece of equipment that had been damaged in the Helix Nebula battle. Look at this power coupling. By every standard procedure, it is beyond repair. The Valorians would say you need to replace it with a new unit. That takes time and resources. He grabbed his tools and started working. But if you understand how the system actually functions, you can bypass the damaged sections and redirect the power flow. It is not perfect. It is not pretty, but it works. Within 10 minutes, he had the coupling functional again. The students stared at him with admiration. That is the human way, Taesung said. We make do, we adapt, we survive. The door to the workshop opened and Velthar entered. He carried a strange device that looked like a combination of 3 different pieces of alien technology, melted together. Mechanic Kim, Velthar said formally. We have acquired salvage from an unknown vessel. My team cannot identify its function or origin. I thought perhaps you could examine it. He set the device on Taesung's workbench with something that might have been a smile. I thought perhaps you might show us the human way, Velthar added. Taesung looked at the device, then at his class, then at Jiwoo, who was watching with bright, curious eyes. Let me tell you about improvisation, Taesung said, picking up his tools. The war was not over. The conspiracy's leaders were still out there, planning their next move. The Valorian hardliners had not given up on their goals. There would be more battles, more danger, more sacrifices. But today, in this workshop, with students eager to learn and a daughter who looked at him with pride, Taesung felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. They had survived. They had fought back. They had proven that humanity belonged in the coalition as equals, not subordinates. They had shown that human ingenuity and adaptability were strengths, not weaknesses. Whatever came next, they would face it together. They would improvise. They would adapt. They would survive. Because that was the human way. And as Taesung began taking apart the mysterious device, showing his students how to approach an unknown problem with curiosity instead of fear, he knew that his wife would be proud. Sang-woo would be proud. He was not just fixing machines anymore. He was building a future, one improvised solution at a time.